Well, there are tons of great projects that'll get you outside and get the whole family engaged, working out in the yard. It's springtime. It's time to be outside.
Right, exactly. So something else that you can do with the kids is a sensory garden. I don't know if you're familiar with the idea.
I love this idea. And
Right.
it's kind of important, especially for those younger kids or kids who maybe do have some sensory issues. This is a great way.
That's exactly, and it gets them engaging. So that you want to play with all the senses. So you want to be able to touch it, like the little grass there, and there's some strawberries in there. You can eat it and taste it, and some of the herbs you can taste. And if you just rub on like the lavender or the rosemary, you can smell your hand afterwards, and it just picks up the smell and releases it.
I love that. The sage as well. So all of these different textures that your kids can engage in and touch in.
And you can also put in flowers.
Yeah, and then they don't have to feel bad about, they're not messing up the garden if they're touching all this stuff.
Right, exactly. And then something else, a way that they can help you with, or if you're just looking to a little bit easier or cheaper way to grow a bigger garden, you can start from seeds.
I've never had much luck growing from seeds, but again, I've never had a demonstration from an expert. What's the first thing we need to do?
So the first thing is to get a good soil. So we have you can get a seeding mix, or there are several potting mixes you can use, but it's something that drains really well. You don't want to be using topsoil, something that's going to be real heavy and holding water. And a general rule of thumb on seeds is you want to plant them about twice as deep as the seed is.
Really?
So if the seed's, what is that, about a
That's
eighth
about the
of an
size
inch?
of like a sunflower seed.
Right, exactly. So you'll put in twice as deep, and you just settle that in there. And normally for each one, you'll do 2 or 3 to kind of
in one of the little packets that you're using.
And what we'll do, and I'll show you in a second, we'll just simply thin those out. So you can do a pot like this. If you have plastic, you can do plastic. These are biodegradable. So
a lot of the seeds that I see are they're tiny, tiny, tiny. How do you plant those?
So those you can either sprinkle them in or thin them. And I actually have some smaller seeds in here. Let's see if I can get those out.
I don't think we'll be able to see them on TV.
You won't,
they're just that tiny.
And you wouldn't want to lick your pencil right now, but normally a little bit of moisture. But if you have a little bit of water or a little bit of hand sanitizer and a pencil,
you'd be able to pick them up with
normally
the
you
end of
can pick them up with the lead on the end of a pencil, and that helps you set them in the meeting.
And how far down into
once again, so it's a smaller seed, so twice as deep, so just barely. And you can always, after you're done, instead of setting it, you can even just sprinkle some over the top of it to cover those small seeds and pat it in if you don't want to.
Just pat it, but don't like smush it down.
Right, exactly.
Okay, what's the next step?
So after that, you'd water it in real good, put it someplace warm to kind of grow up. Okay. And then in a few weeks, 3-4 weeks, you'll have something like this starting.
Like magic.
And so this is an example. They had several in here. And so instead of pulling them and trying to thin them like that, you can either use a pair of scissors, and that one's kind of damaged, so we'll take that one off. And then if you don't have scissors, don't have it available, you can also pinch it, but you don't want to pull up the plant because the roots are all growing in together. You don't want to damage the roots of this one you're trying to eventually plant.
Okay.
And so
you will be taking the tops off of the plants.
you'll be thinning them out because and it depends on the type of plant how far you'll need to thin them, but you don't want them all competing for with the same nutrients, the same water, the same resources.
All right, and then it's time to put it in the ground, right?
That's it.
And then you get to enjoy the fruits of all of your hard work.
Yes, ma'am.
I love it. Some great tips from Greengate Garden Center on getting out in your yard and getting those seeds growing at this time of year. Stick around, more Midday after the break.